No pressure. Don't be intimidated or scared. You are in the deep end. If you can touch your toes and breathe, it's not quite, you're not in the right place. You got to be deeper than that. That's what the deep end means. This is not the kiddie pool. This is for fantasy football players who want to figure the hard stuff out.
That's
I'm
right.
Mike Shope, back with my partner from last year, Adam Krautwurst, with Draft Sharks. Great to see you again, Adam. And also tonight we have Todd Kovler at Love My Baxter or at DGFL9. He's going to teach us about winning high stakes best ball. Todd, I feel like you can also teach us about, survivor contests and a lot of things here, depending on how long we go.
Definitely, man. Whatever you want to get into. I'm a degenerate gambler. Let's do it.
Adam, you ready for this guy or what?
Yeah, listen, we were supposed to go Tuesday, and now it's been 48 hours of just anticipation, so I'm ready to go.
I hope you didn't sleep, because
I didn't sleep. I definitely didn't sleep.
Just a lot of thoughts are running through my mind. One thing, Todd, that Adam brought up in our discussions about you and your success is, like, it's still only March. It's early. Do you think of March as early? Because I feel like I'm in my wheelhouse a little bit with the draft coming up, and it's still sort of small time best ball leagues, but I feel like it's mid-season in a certain way.
I'm in 3 best balls right now. FPC, 250 slow, 2 hours, 6 hours. So it's a year-round job for me. That's how you stay on par with what's going on. Just like Buffalo today, Matt Breida. Just like yesterday, Mike Davis. I'm on top of it, man. This is my job. So I'm on different websites. I got the beat reporters going. I'm on Twitter, and I draft. And to me, by staying on top of it, I got an edge right now. I watch a lot of college ball, so I'm going to have an edge right after the draft. And then watching preseason games and staying on top of it, I think I'll have an edge on live drafts right before the season.
Yeah, Adam, is that how you look at it too? Like, people will ask me, how can you draft in February or March? Like, it's not really a question of that. Everybody has the same information. And, Todd mentioning Mike Davis, if you happen to be in the right spot there in your draft, maybe you could have taken advantage of that. It's as long as you're working on an even playing field with everybody else, there's still a game to be played.
Yeah, exactly. If in a perfect world, honestly, in a perfect world, I wouldn't be drafting in March, and I wouldn't be doing slow drafts because I do like the even playing field as far as the live drafts, because it's, unless something happens within the 2 hours of your live draft, right, where someone has an advantage. But usually, if you're in one of these slow drafts, there's 6 hours, 12 hours. Like you said, a lot of big things happen in August when there's training camp and injuries, and then you grab the handcuff in the 8th round, who's now a 3rd round pick. But yeah, I mean, this is the hand we're dealt. Drafting's constantly happening now. The season, there officially is no off season now. Mike and I did a draft, Todd, before the season even ended. I think we're in December we were drafting. So
Todd has done those.
That's right. So that's how it is these days. And you have to be a part of it, or guys will get a leg up on you if you're not doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah, Todd. So 2020 was a complicated year, just only in the realm of fantasy football. It was still like that, or fantasy sports, because you always had to be sort of ready and be flexible. What kind of year was it like for you? How did you do, and what were your keys last year, especially considering how much news there was as the season went along?
Well, I don't do traditional fantasy football drafts no more, because back in the day when I did them, I would stack my roster so good, and then you would have to start 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and I would look at the running backs on my roster, and I had great matchups, and I would start 2 running backs that I thought that week would be good, and then the guys I have on my bench did better, and then I would get a loss. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not. It would be heartbroken, because you're trying to figure out all week, should I start this guy versus that defense? Should I start this guy versus that defense? And you make the right play, but then of course it burns you. So I stopped doing traditional, man, because I know so much about sports that best ball is to my advantage, because I got 28 guys on my roster and I can stack my roster so good. So the COVID, what you're saying this year, COVID wasn't really a problem for me, because I already knew going into COVID which guys we're not gonna play. They sat out. Damian Williams on Kansas City. So there was a few guys that said way before that they weren't going to play, and then you already knew who was up next on that roster and the depth chart. So to that advantage, I was cool with it. And I do one big future bet every year. I took Broncos under. I hit that. So COVID had really nothing to do with that. Denver, Drew Lock, all this hype. I don't like Denver. Overhyped. And then I do a lot of DFS, FanDuel, and DraftKings, and I'm on top of that during the week. So the COVID thing really, it didn't affect me, man, because I stay on top of it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think, and what you're talking about too is Bestball was designed for, just like you said, people who get burned setting their lineups, right? That's kind of what Bestball was designed for. But what it's morphed into is, oh, wait a minute, if I don't have to do lineups, I can do 300 drafts. You know what I mean? If I'm willing to spend the money and put in the time to actually draft, which is the best part of fantasy football, in my opinion. So yeah, for sure. And then you referenced, how you were locked in last year. So what were some of the players or situations in 2020 that you were, on that helped you win, over 30 grand?
I had Chase Claypool. I figured that offense. Schuster's always running slot. Deontay Johnson's always on the outside. And then Claypool just had to beat James Washington. So I didn't think that James Washington was a threat to Claypool. Claypool, Notre Dame, dude's a monster. He's a beast. So that's one of my guys. Go ahead.
So I was just saying, are you worried at all? I mean, this is kind of looking down the road, but it might be too early for you to give a concrete answer. Are you worried at all this year? Not worried, but like the end of the second half of the last year, the Steelers, or Big Ben, just the wheels fell off. I was super excited about having just Deontay and Claypool there, and then Juju comes back on that cheap deal, kind of muddying the waters there. Are you locked now? Obviously, you were taking Claypool late, probably 20th round. Are you willing to spend like a top 7 round pick on him now?
No. See, the thing about best ball is, like, people ask me, what guys do you like? It's not what guys do I like. What guys available? What round am I drafting? I'm open to anybody. It's all about value. So like this year, we'll go this year. We'll hold off on that, man. But like Mike Davis, I liked him coming out of college, played for the Niners, bounced around the league. Now he's backing up McCaffrey. McCaffrey gets hurt. Mike Davis filled in perfectly. I got Mike Davis like 27th round. And Claypool, I got it the 26th round. So those two guys made me a lot of money, man. And that's what I mean. Like, I know a lot about ball, so I figured I'd get some of these guys at the end of the draft where other guys are maybe looking for older veterans, or they're maybe looking for young guys thinking that they're going to do something. So it's all about the situations that these guys are in. Kareem Hunt I was on because I knew that they're going to run the ball a lot. And he was going to be basically splitting with Chubbs. So I liked Hunt. Another one was Antonio Gibson. When Geis got arrested and Geis got thrown off the team, Gibson was a beast in college. I'm like, if they give that dude an opportunity, that dude can do everything. And then the last one was, what was the last guy? I think that was it. That was the last guy because Robinson, I was on Robinson too because Fournette got cut. Remember Fournette got cut.
That's Mike's guy. Mike's claim to fame last year was Robinson.
The thing that's interesting about this is that all these things happened at different times of the year, right? You had to know that Claypool was in Pittsburgh first. You had to know that Fournette got cut in August. Gibson when was Geis? July, June or July. So do you pretty much evenly distribute your investments, or do you do more certain times a year?
Oh, you talking about leagues?
Yes.
Oh, whatever opportunity I can get on, man. I'm going to go for live drafts. I'm going to go for slow drafts. I'm going to get in this year. I plan on 50 to 75 total, and they got to be 250 and up. So I want to hit a bunch of 1250s, 1250s. I only do FFPC because I like the tight end scoring. And like I said, like you said, both of you guys, you draft, you leave it alone. I don't have to do nothing. And then weekly, I can concentrate on my FanDuel and my DraftKings, because that weekly grind to make money in that's a whole different animal, man.
Yeah, and you've got your picks too. What about so you have Mike Davis in the 26th round, or Claypool in the 27th round, or vice
Yep.
versa. I would get to, this actually happened to me last year with James Robinson, where by the Draft Sharks Invitational, by mid-August, I had drafted Robinson enough times, and it wasn't a sure thing. This was before Fournette even got cut, where I thought, well, I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket, as they say, right? So I would stay away from him. And looking back on that, Todd, I feel like, why do that? You know, if you like him, you like him. If you want to win, you got to want to win big. You got to be prepared to sort of pick your players. You're talking about opportunities and drafts. That's right, and just sort of rely on it. And if those guys get hurt, then you might be stuck. But I think that might be the kind of thinking that you need.
You're right. And I think by drafting a guy like that, where maybe he won't affect you too much if he doesn't pan out.
Right.
But the upside of drafting that dude that like in those rounds, like, oh my God, that's a big plus, man. If one of your main running backs go down, like I did last year, Miles Sanders, Mixon, I had so many guys that McCaffrey, a few drafts, Barkley, a few drafts. So having like a Barkley go down and then drafted a Robinson down here, that just cancels out McCaffrey, and I'm cool now. I don't lose a beat.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know you said I love it. So, you know, some guys are numbers guys, right? Some guys are tape guys, but you said I know a lot about ball. And it's just like, so I love that. Now, do you have any specific strategies when it comes to, so you're playing in like, you know, 250 is not, to me, isn't high stakes, but it's high stakes compared to a lot of these, you know, underdog fantasy, a lot of these $35 credits that we get through FFPC, and obviously 1250s, you know, you get the 1250s, and you can even go up higher than that. Do you, couple questions. Do you care about like player management, like roster construction, as far as the percentage, like, hey, I'm not going to own a guy more than 17% of my teams? Or do you just take each draft in individually? And are you and to piggyback off that, are you a heavy RB guy, a zero RB guy, or do you kind of just let the draft come to you?
Exactly. I let the draft come to me, man. If like these drafts now, it seems like it's all running back heavy in the beginning. Now it's kind of switching a little bit because now you got Drake that went to the Raiders. Josh Jacobs is kind of slipping. You got Jamal Williams that went to Detroit. Swift is kind of dropping by. So you had a lot of dudes. Aaron Jones now. Now Aaron Jones back in the mix, but he was slipping. But you have a lot of guys like a few weeks ago where Jonathan Taylor and all these dudes are like so running back heavy where you got to pick running backs because nothing's going to be left, man. So it all depends on the way the draft's going. But I'll switch up to whatever I have to make my roster solid. And there is no format like I need to get 4 tight ends. If I got a Waller, if I got a Kittle, if I got a Kelsey, I don't need 3 other tight ends. If I think that dude's the best guy in the league, then I'll get 2 guys instead of my normal 3. If I get Goddard as my number 1, then I might have to get Goddard. I might have to get Fant, and I might have to get Everett, who went to Seattle, and I might have to get 4 tight ends because I don't have that elite tight end. So if I get one of the big dogs, Kittles, Kelsey, Waller, then I'm going to save another roster spot for another roster spot that I think is weaker that I need to build on. 250s, I want to go 500s and up, but on the FFPC, the action of 500s and 1250s, especially right now, there is none.
There is none. That's right.
There is none. As it gets closer, I'm on them.
Yeah.
I already emailed FFPC. Let's get something higher than 1250. They mentioned last year a 10,000 one, but nobody signed up for the 10,000 one.
Well, I think COVID probably had some, I mean, I don't want to speak for FFPC, but probably a lot of the big time players out there kind of held some of their money back because of the weariness about COVID. But yeah, that sounds great, man. I mean, I would love to watch you draft in a $10,000 league.
Oh man, the higher the better, man. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, no,
I got a bankroll that I'm 50, man. So I went through ups and downs back in the day when you're young and you gamble and you can't control your bankroll management and you lose and now you're chasing. You got emotions, man. those days are over, man. I'm a professional at this now, man. Like you said, Mike, don't put all your eggs in one basket. FanDuel, DraftKings, FFPC, Circa. I won 6 figures. I do a little bit of everything, man.
Let's talk just on best ball strategy. One more thing I'm thinking about, Todd, is quarterback. So you talked about tight end. I thought it was good, a piece from Rich Rebar at Warren Sharp's website where he talked about the distribution, how many quarterbacks tend to be on the winning teams in FFPC and also FanBall. How do you like to play quarterback with knowing that, like all the good players, you want to just sort of size up what your options are at a certain point in the draft? Do you like to wait? Do you sometimes end up beating other people to quarterback and then figuring it out? What's best for you?
Last year, I usually went around the 7th round, and I would get a quarterback. This year, I'm getting a quarterback in the top 4 rounds because they're going quick. For some reason, they're going real quick. So I'm trying to get a Kyle Murray. I'm trying to get a Jackson. I'm trying to get a Mahomes. Deshaun Watson. He looks like he's going to prison. Maybe, who knows? I'm leaving him alone. He's probably getting a massage right now, so I'm leaving Deshaun Watson alone. But I'm trying to get a top tier quarterback and mostly a running quarterback.
Hey,
Prescott,
Todd,
I haven't drafted. Go ahead.
Todd, you didn't mention the only quarterback that matters is Josh Allen. Come on.
Oh, that's true. Hold on, man. I blacked out for a minute. I
That's
love
right.
Josh Allen. I love Josh Allen.
Adam isn't worried about Trubisky too much. We have a segment later where we're talking about like Drake and Jacobs, guys who've been cut into. Well, I guess we'll press Adam on that later. But
no, man, you don't have to worry about nobody. I don't even think Jim Kelly can come back and take Josh Allen's job. Josh Allen, man, I love that dude, man.
So you are paying up, like if you feel like you should be.
Yeah, I think the top 4: Allen, Murray, Jackson. Who am I missing?
Mahomes.
Mahomes. There you go. Dak. We don't know about his injury. I don't know if he's going to run a lot. He didn't run that much. But the top 4 or 5 after that, man, could be a big fall off, man. So if I can get one and then maybe later on get a Matt Ryan, I'm cool with Matt Ryan as my number 2. And then I think you're good. But I am trying to get a top tier quarterback that runs. If Russell Wilson too, throw Russell Wilson in there because Russell Wilson's a monster. He's a beast. Aaron Rodgers, I'm not messing with Rodgers, but top 4 or 5 rounds, you got to get a stud quarterback this year so far.
If Watson doesn't play, so they're at a point now where he hasn't been traded, of course. They were defiant, and now it looks like it could be bad. Then right now it's Tyrod Taylor. And so this could be a team that drafts a quarterback. I mean, they probably should, especially if they trade him. And that would be interesting for Taylor because that's followed him around his whole career. But that'll be an interesting guy to try to evaluate. Right now in these best balls, I don't know if he's going at all, like if he's being drafted at all. But if you get to a point where you're sitting on 2 or even 3, I think there's some chance that he's on the field.
Definitely. I like Tyrod back in the day, especially with you guys. Good game manager, but really no upside running. He doesn't really run that much. They lost Fuller. They only have Cooks, but their defense is going to be so lousy where Taylor's going to have to throw the ball a lot, and they're going to be behind. So I look at that also. But I haven't drafted Taylor because I don't know what's going on with that situation. Right. But I think he is getting suspended, man.
Yeah, that could happen. Well, Todd, I mean, I love the vibe here. It's a year-round game, and you're all over it. I know if I'm watching this show right now, I'm checking to make sure that you're not in my league because I'm scared. Like this is the deep end, right? You can't find. You're trying to get your way. So, I mean, good luck. You've had a lot of success, and I think that key there is the flexibility and the willingness to be able to draft different strategies depending on what's happening around you. I mean, that seems like an important point.
Also, a big key is if you get burned by a player last year,
forget it.
I'll go right back to him.
Forget it.
Right.
No hard feelings.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, man, because
it's not personal.
You will get burned, man. So it all depends on the situation. Like I said, offensive coordinator, new quarterback, new coach, if they're playing from behind. And there's a lot of things going on when you draft and you figure out. We don't know the schedule yet, so we don't know exactly who's playing who when. We know who they're playing, but we don't know exactly the flow of the schedule. So I look at that right now. I look at the schedule and see what teams are playing which. But, man, to me, it's a little bit of everything, man. And I love the process, man.
Speaking of the process, what a great transition there. And you're talking about schedule, and I use strength of schedule a lot. I know some people say it can be a thing that can kind of trip you up, but what's one thing before we go here? Like what do you think is one of the major parts of your process that's kind of made you so successful, winning 6-7 figures over the years, playing fantasy sports, whether it's DFS or whatever? Like what's one thing? Because this whole thing that Mike and I want to do is we want to kind of let the people know how the most successful players in the industry do it. Like what's one piece of your process that you think is very important?
Eyeball test. I watch the games and I come up with a decision. I'm not biased against certain teams. I'm not biased against certain players. It's the eyeball test, man. I'm not sitting there on my phone. I'm watching games and texting. I'm like locked in and watching everything. And it's all about volume, man. If these guys are on the field, good things are going to happen, man. If you guys are working all day and you guys come home on a Sunday and watch SportsCenter and you see a tight end catching 2 touchdowns, but meanwhile you check the stats and the dude was on the field 30% of the time, that means it's luck, man. 30% of the time he got 2 targets and he got 2 touchdowns. That ain't gonna last, man.
Yep. So what you're saying is you go with your gut and you trust your gut over anybody else who's going to tell you something different.
Oh, definitely, man. You guys can tell me all kinds of stuff like do this, it's my money, man. So I'm gonna draft. I'm gonna do what I do with my money, and I'm gonna trust my process. I'm confident on my process. And like I said, the money's cool. Don't get me wrong. I live in Cali. I do need money, but the process, when I'm sitting there and you're watching you win, like look at that hard work that you put into it. That's rewarding, man.
Listen, Mike's getting chills going up and down thinking of the process. He loves the process.
Well, I know one thing, Mike. You told me that if you see my name, that you're not going to go against me. So now every time I join FFPC, I got to switch up my name, man, because I want to go against you.
Well, Adam did you a favor because that's not your Twitter down there. I think that's what your sort of name is on Twitter. But DGFL9, we got to watch for that guy.
That's right.
Love my Baxter, man. That's my dog's name.
Baxter. What last thing? Who's your favorite running back in this college draft, in this draft coming up?
I like Etienne. And I think you guys might draft him. Breida's not the answer.
Yeah, Breida. The question today here was, does Breida rule out any kind of pick? And I'm not sure it does. But they have a nice enough team where they could maybe take a shot like that. Otherwise, I would, caution against it. But they're pretty well balanced, pretty deep.
Yeah, they're just young. They're young, man. Singletary's young. Moss is young. Yeah, man. You need a. Even though Etienne's going to be young, but man, if you guys can get like a true maybe workhorse, man, with that offense, I like Sanders' pick. Sanders was a good one. You lost John Brown. You got Sanders. I still think you need a tight end, man. Not sold on Knox right now.
Yep. Agreed.
Adam, I hope by now people know that Todd is referring to us like the Bills. Like we're not wearing Bills or anything like that.
That's right.
Todd,
he knows.
Todd's got a Pancho Villa sweatshirt. There it is. He's ready. I mean, that is just that guy. You don't need any more proof that this talk of preparation is true, because right there.
That's right.
The shirt.
Bills Mafia, man, all day. I love them. Even though I'm on the West Coast, I still represent.
Love it.
Thank you, Todd. We'll be tracking your results here and rooting for you this year. Thanks a lot for being on with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Anytime, guys.
Thanks so much, Todd.
Yep. All right. Todd Kovler at DGFL9. It's a great shirt. Love California. Love the whole thing.
Love the energy. Yeah, no, Todd's great. You can tell he's a fantasy football player, man. He's just trusts his gut. Trust the eye test. And what's funny is, that's like old school now, right? Like people who actually just watch the games and they do it that way. And because a lot of people, it's analytics, it's numbers, and just to see a kind of an old school mentality to fantasy football is just refreshing. Trust your gut, man.
Well, he's putting a lot of his money into it. I mean, the kind of numbers we're talking about there, that is a serious investment. So you have to do well to be able to survive with those sort of dollars. Well, it's the time of year where free agency is mostly played out. There have been some interesting developments. I was hoping for a little bit more chaos than we got. Then you've got the draft coming up. So some players, you and I have both been drafting, and some players' stocks have changed, right, Adam? I mean, for better or worse, whether it's a player who changed teams or even like in terms of Green Bay, a player who didn't.
Yeah, no, for sure. What an exciting, what a great run there for like a week or two, just to figure out who was going where. It was fun. Some guesses were right. Some guesses were wrong. But yeah, Aaron Jones, I think even though he didn't leave, I think he's definitely a riser. He's back in an offense that he's familiar with, offense he's been very successful in. And I think he's in store for more touches, AJ Dillon is on the rise there, I think, but I don't think AJ Dillon is going to be the answer as the receiving back, right? So when I'm looking for a running back, I'm looking for a guy who's going to score touchdowns and going to get catches. Those are the two. Like receiving yards come with the catches, but rushing yards really don't mean a lot to me as far as fantasy results. I want touchdowns, which are hard to predict, and catches. So I don't think AJ Dillon's going to turn into their third down back, right? So and Jamal Williams is gone. So and he took a lot of the pass down work, and he was a fairly talented back too. So I think Aaron Jones is in for a season like he had 2 years ago, where he gets a lot more volume and can score double-digit touchdowns, get 60 catches. I'm excited about Aaron Jones at the top of the second round.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he is about as safe right now. So March 25th, I think he is about as safe as anybody. Derrick Henry is pretty safe. McCaffrey is pretty safe, although there may be a new quarterback. Jones, like what are the questions? You can have a question about Dillon and the upside, but I just don't worry about the Packers really going after new weapons. And the fact that they drafted Dillon in the second round last year, they may not even care. Like they'd be right to not evaluate or not use him just based on that. It shouldn't matter. He's on the team. How good are you? What can your role be? And Jones with Rodgers is a team that went 13-3 2 years in a row. They've had two very good seasons in a row. Quarterback, coordinator, all of it is going to be very much like it was last year, if not exactly. Jamal Williams leaving shouldn't be bad for him. I mean, maybe Dillon takes that role a little bit. I think there's just every reason to like Aaron Jones. And if I'm drafting at 10 or 11 in a best ball right now, I would do it. I mean, I don't think I mean, you got Tyreek Hill down there. The tight ends, FFPC with the tight end premium can really distort that because you see Waller and Kittle go in that spot. But I think Jones has an argument for first round.
Yeah, we get so locked into FFPC stuff because that's at least I do a lot of FFPC, a lot of the high stakes stuff. It's FFPC, but you're right. You get rid of some of those tight ends, and now Jones the back end of the first round for sure. And I think as the offseason progresses, I think like you said, safe. People are going to look and they're going to see that safety. And they're gonna move him up there. And like you said, I think AJ Dillon's gonna get a lot of Jamal Williams rushing work, but I don't think he's gonna get a lot of the passing work that Jamal Williams got. And I think it's gonna go to Jones, and he could have a real nice year for sure.
Who else do you like here as a riser?
Yeah, I like Chase Edmonds. For now, obviously Drake's gone. Chase Edmonds ADP. I'm gonna look it up right now, but Chase Edmonds ADP has been through the roof, right, since Drake left. But this is kind of like you said, March 25th riser, right? I don't think they're going into the season the same with the clear cut one or anything like that. They could draft a running back, so which is probably what they're going to do. But right now, if you're drafting now, Chase Edmonds makes sense. But this could certainly change right after draft day. And then, I think we lost Mike there for a second, but so Edmonds again, a guy. Sorry, Mike, yep, gotcha. You're back.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, actually, I was saying it. Anybody in the house can vouch for me. I wonder what Arizona does next. You never know about the draft. And there are plenty of running. It's not 3 guys or 2 guys. There are plenty of running backs. You get to Hubbard and Kylan Hill and you get Gainwell. There are 10. There are plenty of running backs in the draft that a team like this could end up drafting, even if it's day 3. I mean, what was Gibson? Or Robinson wasn't drafted at all. And they become a player. Arizona has to have somebody else in that roster.
Yes.
So Fournette is interesting, still being a free agent. I guess I would predict he goes back to Tampa, but I have no idea really. And I think probably what happens is Edmonds ends up being Edmonds, which is somebody that he's difficult to start. Now, if we're talking about Bestball, as we are, I mean, there are going to be weeks where he helps you, but I wouldn't want to be racing to him right now because I think they have to do something else.
Yeah, I felt weary to kind of putting it on there, but I was, someone could be like, oh, what about Chase Edmonds? So technically Chase Edmonds now, but yeah, like you said, there's so many, there's some depth at running back in this draft. And what's interesting is too, as we say Chase Edmonds, if they take a running back on day 2, even like one of these top 6 or 7 prospects, that running back is going to shoot up ADP for sure. Cause they're probably going to get the early down work. And they're probably going to get goal line work, although Kyler Murray takes a lot of that away. But so yeah, it's going to be interesting. But either way, I think Edmonds is going to have a role at least as a third down pass catching back. I mean, he's shown great flashes. So,
but Adam, like, what's the value of that? Like what if he's Tariq Cohen? Like what if you're drafting him at the high end of his range? I think you're right. I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance he ends up being somebody's Gio Bernard or something like that.
Yeah.
And somebody we're not talking about is Arizona's number 1. If you're drafting a running back on day 2 as the Cardinals, I mean, he's your running back. Whoever that, if it's Gainwell or whoever that is,
yeah,
he's the number 1.
No, I totally get it. And I'm actually looking for his ADP right now to try to see. He's definitely rising. I can't find it, but yeah, he's oh, there we go. He's RB 28. He's going in 7th round, 7-2.
Are you looking at Fantasy Mojo?
Fantasy Mojo, yep. Sorry, Fantasy Mojo ADP. He's going in the beginning of the 7th round. So as RB 28, if you take him as RB 28, when the Cardinals draft a running back, he's probably not going to be RB 28, but he could have those spot weeks too. Where if there's an injury, he comes in, he's going to have those weeks where you have 6-7 catches. So, but yeah, he's not going to be the guy most likely after the NFL draft.
Yeah, looking at those names on the Mojo site, Melvin Gordon 25, Ronald Jones 27. Those are Javonte Williams 24. I like all of those guys more. I have a little bit of Edmonds, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Anybody else for the risers?
Yeah. So we got one of my favorites. Love Josh Reynolds. Love me some Josh Reynolds. Yeah. I mean, what do you think, Mike? I mean, you know how I feel about Josh Reynolds. What are your thoughts on his new location, and can he put up a wide receiver 3 season?
I think it's very interesting. He is somebody I would be drafting at his price because it's just too obvious. I mean, with Davis gone, that was a really nice year. And what else are they going to be? No Corey Davis, no Jonnu Smith, no Humphreys if you want to go that far. I mean, it's still a Derrick Henry team, but They've been in the playoffs 2 years in a row, AFC Championship. They probably are a team that thinks they have it figured out. And so you could see a rookie there brought in. Corey Davis is a rookie, if it matters, did really not get that much going on. AJ
No,
Brown is
he was
the
bad.
alpha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you'll probably see at least one more name there if you count certain rookies as that. But they went for Reynolds. It was pretty early in free agency. And so they must think he can play a role for them. What that is, again, it always comes down to what round and what the price is. But
yeah,
I'm certainly curious about that.
Yeah, my only concern is the fact that they lost Arthur Smith, right? So what's the offense exactly going to look like? Right now he's Josh Reynolds is the wide receiver 81 going in the 24th round.
But wide receivers don't even wear 81 anymore.
That's right. That's free. You're getting him for free, and he could be Corey Davis this year. I mean, Josh Reynolds has been stuck behind great receivers for the Rams the last couple of years. I don't think he really fits their scheme there. He's more of a Corey Davis downfield athletic type player. He could just slide right into that role. If he plays 16 games and is 80% of Corey Davis, he's certainly gonna pay off, wide receiver 80-81 price, so yeah, we'll see. But I think he's one of those guys you can take in the 24th round that, hey, if he has a Corey Davis season there, now, I don't want to say he's a league winner, but you get those guys that outplay their ADP by 12 rounds, 13 rounds, 14 rounds. That's what makes your money. So I definitely like Josh Reynolds there. So and that's all I had for the risers.
Yeah, I think at that level you can't you can't expect too much. I think you can be fine there. I think in a redraft league you could see him in a three receiver starting lineup, 2 flex, a league like that. You might see him play. But I think like Arizona, like we've talked about, there's a little bit more to do in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Let's get to AJ Dillon. We talked about Aaron Jones, and the flip side of that is Dillon. Look, it was a draft investment, like a serious investment. When he played, of course, mostly later on in the season, but that's not worse. He did pretty well. So dynasty, really, I think of Dillon in terms of that. You can't trade him right now. He can't be a sell because of Jones signing there after it had been expected that he wasn't going to, or at least it was possible. So I think you got to hang in there on Dillon, and I think there is still a chance that you can do all right there. Like, you were never starting Jamal Williams, so you need Jones out of the way eventually. But I don't think Dillon is dead in terms of fantasy where he is.
No, I mean, in an age where running backs are always getting hurt. And here's the interesting thing about that situation is, right, Dillon has shown the ability, right? And the Packers kind of, this should have been brought up during the Aaron Jones portion, but if the guy sneezes, they don't let him play. If the guy even touches, like, oh, my knee might be hurt, they don't let him play. So, I mean, Aaron Jones last year, if you remember, sat out like 3 weeks, said he was good to go after the first week of sitting out. And the only reason they played him after 3 weeks was because the other running backs were in contact with COVID. So he was the only like active running back on the roster, and they had to play him. So all that to say that AJ Dillon is certainly going to get some opportunities if Aaron Jones even gets injured slightly. So he's certainly worth a handcuff at the very least. He's going right now in the 8th round. It's a little pricey for a handcuff. That's like a Tony Pollard type spot where Pollard was going last year. That's like an elite handcuff. Do I think he's an elite handcuff? No, because I don't think he has that pass catching. I don't think he has that standalone value. But like you said, you weren't starting Jamal Williams. But if Aaron Jones goes down, Dillon, I think would do really, really well. So 8 round, usually I'm not taking a guy there unless I took Aaron Jones and I just wanted to secure that RB1 or at least mid-level RB2 by getting AJ Dillon in case of an injury. But yeah, dynasty, you're holding him, you're not selling him, you're not going to get much for him, and hope maybe they trade him next year or he leaves. This will be his second year, so yeah, he can't leave after next year. But usually, talented running backs find a home and are successful, early on in their career, unless it is Tony Pollard, and I draft him every year. So,
hey, I don't think their situations are that different. I like Pollard, but yeah, you got to hang in there with Dillon in Dynasty. You can do it in these best balls, but you get to a point in each best ball draft where like, okay, what are my options at each position? And we're talking about Edmonds and Dillon in this range where I think you want to be drafting receivers there. Like if you get to a point where you're at that running back 25 to 30 range and you feel like you need one, you might be in trouble. And then you just got to hope that something breaks and they get on the field. Josh Jacobs, now this is a serious one.
Yeah.
And this is a franchise that you just cannot trust to make optimal decisions at all. They draft Jacobs in the first round. They do not throw the ball to him. And now they kind of just cut his legs off with the Kenyon Drake signing. I don't know. I don't know why they would ever have even thought of that idea. They just must think Jacobs needs help. And where does that leave you in terms of him on your dynasty team or in these drafts? I mean, he's hurt bad by that move.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane. Well, it's not insane. What's insane was hiring a guy who was out of football for 10 years, who's an old school coach that, to give him, what would they give him, like a 10-year contract or something stupid? That was insane. And this is what you get. You get a high draft pick on Josh Jacobs, then they don't use him right. Then they go pick up Kenyon Drake, and now Josh Jacobs is, whatever. It's the unfortunate thing, and this is where the difference between like draft or player analysis and actual drafting kind of mix here is. I don't own any Josh Jacobs in Dynasty. I wasn't planning on drafting him this year at ADP. So I'm kind of annoyed that they picked up Kenyon Drake because now he's falling and now no one's on him. At least before, the people who,
right,
I didn't like him, but now nobody likes him. So that does kind of stink. But yeah, I mean, let me see where he's going right now. He's probably he's got to be in the fourth rounder right now. Yeah, 4-1 exactly. He's going at the 4-1. He's not even like he came up and go, oh, he's super talented. He's talented. He's not, all pro. So, right. I'm not touching him in the fourth round. I'm taking a receiver over Josh Jacobs for sure.
Yeah, eventually the price becomes okay, but just no confidence in that situation at all.
Yeah.
Well, anybody else on the fallers list?
Yeah, so the last one I kind of had here was Mecole Hardman. So there's been talk of them drafting a guy there. Sammy Watkins is a free agent. I don't know. Sammy hasn't signed anywhere yet, right, Mike?
No.
Yeah. So and kind of another guy with Mecole Hardman there that I forgot to write his name in there, but Marquise Brown. So, two guys, two field stretchers that just haven't really lived up to what fantasy owners at least would be looking out of him. So he just hasn't produced. Hardman hasn't produced consistent fantasy value. I think at this point, he only saw a 65% snap share, in a quarter of his regular season games last year. And I think that at this point, Hardman is really just a Tyreek Hill handcuff. Right, because you can't even when Sammy Watkins went down, Hardman didn't do anything. They had a couple other receivers they were mixing in there. So I think if you've got Tyreek Hill, take a flyer on Mecole Hardman for the right price and in the teen rounds, because at this point, outside of that, there's just been nothing there for him.
Well, I'm of two minds about Hardman. They have tried to sign good wide receivers. They tried on Juju. They tried on. Was it Hilton? Like they have moved on guys, and for one reason or another, they're not signing. Maybe it's because they don't think they can. If it's a 1-year offer, then how many targets is that, and what's my sort of market value in a year? So that's sort of odd. I mean, Baltimore is one thing, Kansas City on those players and being spurned by those players is another. I do think Hardman is really good. And I think he can be really nice value. He's still young. Maybe we're spoiled by rookie receivers that just come in right away.
Yes.
Hill and Kelsey are dominant figures there. I mean, I think we saw in the Buffalo game in the playoffs, Hardman, that is a rare talent. That is a guy who can it's a game-breaking play he made in that game with that run after he fumbled the punt too earlier in the game, didn't he?
Yes. Yes.
So they go right back to him and he produced. I like this.
Yeah, I think we lost Mike again, but no, yeah, Hardman's definitely talented. He's actually going right now in the 18th round, which is actually a lot lower than I thought he was going. But that's why we call it fallers, right? So he's fallen to the 18th round. Last year he was going in the sometimes the 9th or 10th round there. And so in the 18th round, especially if you have Tyreek Hill, take a shot on him for sure. But sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I went away again.
Yeah, you went away.
Sorry.
I was just saying that Mecole Hardman's actually going in the 18th round. So at that point, like you said, he is very talented. He's certainly worth a shot in the 18th round. But that's certainly a fall from where he was going last year, in the 10th, 9th, 11th round.
Yes, and that's also, I mean, even at his status, that's also a range where there are lots of wide receivers you can make arguments for. That's where Marvin Jones goes.
Sure.
And Marvin Jones could be a home run with the Rams. That's where a lot of the rookies go. You have Aguilar. I mean, nobody seems to like Aguilar, but he could be a number one. So I think there are lots of different best case scenarios for receivers in that range. And I wouldn't want to rule Hardman out. I think he's on the right team, and there's still reason to believe in the player and the situation.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. A lot of this area of the draft are filled with, guys, like Jalen Reagor's down here in the 16th round. Like, is that a guy we want to rule out? Philadelphia was a dumpster fire last year with that. Like, I think he was a number one. No, he was with the number 2 receiver taken in the draft last year. Number 2 or 3.
Ruggs was number 1.
Yeah. Yep. And it's like, they obviously like him. I mean, granted, it's a new staff coming in, but he's talented. That's a guy you take a flyer on. A lot of these late round receivers, man. That's why in these best balls, I pound running back early and then just take flyers on all these late round receivers and hopefully hit one of them.
It's so hard not to do that.
Right.
I'm in a draft now. It's the 14th round, and this is not something I always do, but my first 3 picks were all running backs because it just, what's going to happen. So that went Taylor, Mixon, Gibson. Taylor, Gibson, Mixon was the order there. And then in round 5 or 6, Melvin Gordon, who I think is a great value there. And so let's see what happens. And you get to the mid rounds, like I said, I'm in the 14th, and there's just a lot to like in that phase. You get your quarterbacks taken care of. Now, what's the other side of the coin? If everybody does that, then you're just one of several teams in your league using the same strategy, and just philosophically that makes it harder to win.
Sure.
So, I mean, I find myself all the time looking at receiver in this range. And Marquise Brown, you mentioned, he's a little bit earlier. I am just baffled by how Baltimore, they tried, I guess, but still you just don't get the sense that they really believe in loading up at wide receiver and they want to try to win the same way. They might be successful. They have led the league in point differential 2 years in a row. That is not nothing. And so they're a team. I think again this year there will be value in Baltimore because you're just going to hear the same sort of basic, they can't throw business, and really, like, there's just a lot of reasons to sort of that just sort of refute that. The question becomes, do they want to? Do they need to? If they're dominant like they've been running the ball, you just don't get the opportunities, and that might be the biggest reason why guys like Kenny Golladay and Juju didn't end up signing there. So what a Juju or a Golladay would have been so good for Brown. I was drafting Brown before thinking they would add one. And maybe it'll be Watkins. I don't know, but they still haven't done it.
Yeah, no, I get it. And what's interesting is too, like, people are so low on Brown. If they don't get anybody, I mean, Brown's a riser to me, right? I mean, he's only gonna get better. And if they don't add anyone there, that's a value. Like, he's the number one. I mean, obviously Andrews, I think, is the number one target there, but he's the number one receiver there. It's like, eventually you're going to take him, and he's got some talent for sure. So yeah, though they just don't want to pass the ball. And as much as, like, I'm, for fantasy, I love Lamar Jackson. For an NFL, I always just, give me the pocket passer, the traditional pocket passer. But you at least gotta give them some help. Let's see, and they're not doing it, which is sad, but
the guy they have is Duvernay, and Duvernay is nice, but they just never really turned to him, and they were still using Willie Snead all the time, which was frustrating, because Duvernay is another guy I sort of believe in, but we don't know yet. We have no evidence really that they'll go into this year thinking that it's his time.
Right.
You can hope, and he's not somebody that really comes up at all in these sort of conversations. But
I know
a lot will change between now and even summer, I guess, or just certainly week one. Let's do a couple of things, late round quarterbacks, because it's getting late. But
yep,
we talked about Tyrod Taylor earlier with Todd on. We'll see. That doesn't have to become anything. Just give me your takes on Dalton and Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick, so much love. Oh, Terry McLaurin, all these things. Dalton goes to Chicago, and it's poor Allen Robinson. I don't know. How different is it?
How different are the two quarterbacks or the two situations?
In terms of fantasy, you get into these best balls, and you're later on. How much different is Fitzpatrick and Dalton for you, and like, how do you figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because Dalton, as a Bills fan, like, Dalton got us into the playoffs a couple of years ago, and Fitzpatrick's, a legend across the NFL. The situations are slightly different to me because Fitzpatrick, to me, for your receivers, right, in fantasy, you want them to play for a quarterback. You don't care if the quarterback's good. You want the quarterback to be a gunslinger and willing to give his receivers a chance. That's why Jameis Winston, who stunk 2 years ago, but threw for 1 million yards and had 1 million touchdowns. Like, fantasy owners don't care as long as the receivers are lighting it up. So the Fitzpatrick situation I like for fantasy more because of his propensity to just not only does he sling it, but he focuses that he gets the best players involved. And that's it sounds so simple, but a lot of coaching staffs, a lot of quarterbacks don't do it. So I lean more towards the Fitzpatrick situation than I do towards the Dalton situation. Personally, for me, but the one kind of situation that I'm targeting right now in best ball drafts, and that's for now, is the Saints. Like, I love, and I know this might sound weird, but I love doing the Saints quarterback stack. I love getting Hill. So where Hill's going in the 19th and Winston's going in the 11th. And I love taking both of them because one of them is going to succeed, right? I think one of them is going to be a QB1. And, we talked last year during the podcast about, wouldn't it be fun if Breeze didn't come back or whatever, and Taysom Hill ended up taking over because he got hurt, and everyone's, oh, it's Jameis Winston. Then, like, Saturday it gets announced Taysom Hill's the quarterback, and they're like, oh man, and he was amazing, he was amazing for himself. He wasn't amazing for Alvin Kamara. He wasn't amazing for a lot of other players, but the running and the touchdowns, that's at this point in the season, that's what I'm targeting. Because as soon as one of those guys gets announced the starter, their ADP is going to shoot through the roof. So, what's a 19th round pick for Taysom Hill to kind of pair him up there with Winston, even if you think Winston's going to be the starter?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, that would be a question for me of going back to Rich Rebar and what he wrote, like, how many quarterbacks do I want?
Yep.
I was listening to Michael Leone talk about this, and I just like this point. I've gotten to know Mike a little bit. And he's like, when you're building these teams, you have to remind yourself certain things are going to have to go right to win, no matter what kind of build you come up with. And so you have to let some of that go. If you're drafting whoever, like any one of these quarterbacks, you can't be too worried about protecting them that you're spending otherwise valuable picks on backups and just different alternatives. So, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or somebody like you, if you draft Aaron Rodgers, you probably need a 5,000 yard year from him, and you can draft all the Tyrod Taylors and Andy Daltons that you want, but really you have to sort of count on that. So I think there's a good sort of logical base of that Saints idea. I certainly I wouldn't argue it. I think Winston is their quarterback. I mean, I think that's likely to be what happens, and they've paid Taysom Hill, so they'll probably use him in the same kind of ways as they did with Breeze. And that's in a best ball, there can be value to that. You never want to have to start him, unless Winston is out, of course.
Sure. And that's kind of what I'm talking about is these early best balls. I mean, you need things to go right. I just envision, in best ball, I'm usually drafting 3 quarterbacks. Okay. So I'll take just any guy earlier than Jameis Winston, right? Let's say you take Tom Brady. Okay. Now you take, you're going to take 2 more quarterbacks where you get Jameis Winston, right? And you get Taysom Hill. And what you end up getting there is you're getting a quarterback 1 out of one of them, right? You're getting their handcuff with the other one. So if one of them goes down, you still got two starting quarterbacks for your team. And like you said, Taysom Hill has standalone value in best ball. Like I think they're going to use Taysom Hill more than they were with Drew Brees because they might not trust Winston as much as they trusted Brees. So Taysom Hill could get in there on a lot of goal line situations. I mean, there could be situations where Taysom Hill doesn't even start the game at quarterback and scores 2 or 3 touchdowns, right? So, and he's actually done that before. So for me personally, I love that idea. Took a quarterback earlier than that, and then take those 2 guys, and just have fun. Have fun with it.
I want to see a receiver in New Orleans day 2 of the draft. Doesn't matter who. One of those guys between 4 and 10 in the wide receiver crop on New Orleans because they need somebody. I think there. So, well, I want to say it's just the beginning. I almost did. It is for some. For others, it's just sort of another milepost, right? We're driving across the country, getting ready for the season, and we've been driving for a couple of months here.
That's right.
We'll continue to recruit some of the biggest winners in the high stakes world and bring them to you guys on the deep end and sort of find out about their strategy. I think it'll be a good challenge to find variation in strategies because you will hear a lot of the same things. We get closer, we'll be talking more about specific players in that strategy, and I think there's always a lot to talk about and learn from. So should be a really fun year.
Yeah, I'm excited for next week. Stay tuned. Got a couple things in the works for guests for next week. Not sure who it's going to be, but the guys that we're reaching out to, it's going to be a really great show. I'm super excited for it.
Oh, you mean we're on again next week?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Maybe not. Maybe it's 2 weeks.
I didn't realize we were doing this every week. No,
we don't have to do it every week.
I'm just kidding. Of course we did. All right, so we'll be back. It might be Tuesday next week, but follow the Deep End FF1 on Twitter and find us there.
Yeah, or Deep End FF. There's nobody else like us, so you'll find it.
Deep End FF1. Draft Sharks will point you the way. At Shope Talk for me, SCHOPPTALK. At Adam Krautwurst for Adam. And, ask your questions, give us your suggestions, who you want to see, what you want to hear discussed, and we will consider them. So thank you for watching tonight.
See you guys.